All right. So apologies for my stream going down. I kind of fit or being taken down because of a copyright strike. I didn't think CNBC was going to be that nasty, but they were. Oh well. So that part has been taken out, has been trimmed out, and now it should be perfectly fine. So y'all can go ahead and watch that where I dab on Kevin Castley and crew. But I want to talk about this because I have mentioned this before. And I'm going to try to expand a little bit on this. But I saw a video from JK, Justin King, Beau the Fifth Column. And he said, basically, this one guy, this guy who's part of the insurrection received an 8 month sentence. I'm sorry. I keep on putting the in the wrong place. But yeah, 8 months in jail or prison. I know that there's a difference, but he's going to do 8 months. And he said, basically, well, he's going to lose his job, lose his house, and all this sort of thing. And I think that's okay. And then he goes on to try to frame it in a proper way, in his opinion, quote unquote, where people, he immediately moved the goalposts, in my opinion. And instead of talking more about insurrection and whatnot, he frames it as, oh, well, it's awful that people named Malik would get arrested over selling cannabis, or that person who is an ex-con voting. The system's bad, but it opens yourself up to whataboutisms. The thing is, man, is it's funny to me, the contrast of it, where he's like, yeah, this guy who was at the insurrection, as he said at the very beginning, walked in, took some selfies and left, deserves 8 months to lose his job because he went in there. And I say to myself, like I say, these insurrectionists or whatever, like I say, it's ridiculous to me that you have to be able to dig down and see what they actually really are upset about. Are they upset that it was a group of MAGAPs that did this and not one of their group? Or do they actually love the system? That's the real question, isn't it? Because like I say, people so far, like I say, the bigger mainstream names of the American left, if you will, dare I say it that way, at least YouTube, people like Vosh, people like Beau the Fifth Column, Justin King, or even arguably people like Destiny and Hassan and all these other folks, they have made a crossover where it's like, well, actually, to a point, we have to keep the system that we have. We have to be able to keep the system we have. We have to be able to do these things. So the thing is, nowadays, I think what we see is the softening of message. Now, it was bound to happen. It's just a matter of when. I've softened the message a little bit, I think, to a point, because now I have a job, so I'm more aware of things. When I didn't have a job and it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, yeah, I decided to rant and rave on balkanization. But now the tone has shifted a little bit, because now I have to be mindful of my P's and Q's, right? Such is the way. But I saw this with Ugopnik as well. Ugopnik is probably the only one I really subscribe to that are more left-leaning content makers on YouTube. I don't deal with Jason Unruh anymore. I think that he's boring, to be honest with you. He's just boring because he doesn't really change his tune. It's pretty much just the same type of thing. My third worldism, we should, but we shouldn't leave the United States. White people shouldn't leave. It's up to the people to, it's all boring stuff, in my opinion. I say it's boring because ultimately nobody takes them seriously, and nobody should take them seriously, arguably. Paul Morin, I don't deal with him. Non-compete or any, like I say, these are all folks in general that really haven't moved the needle at all. And I would argue to say that my videos have not moved the needle at all. But the thing is that you see this larger move happening, and I'm sure it's happened to Jason Unruh to a point, and I'm sure non-compete or whoever. But the needle has moved a little bit where, in general, as much as they talk about, like I say, we need an actual definition of liberalism. And I think that this is something that I've failed to define as well. And to me, liberalism represents the fake free market with heavy, heavy quotes. I guess it means, like I say, there's a lot of folks who see liberalism as simply paying debts and, I guess authoritarianism as liberal. I don't know. Like I say, I've seen videos from, also that Space Baby guy, the Maoist, the Filipino Maoist guy. I stopped listening to him because he's so much of a LARPer, and his music is garbage. I'm just going to tell you that. I don't make music, honestly, but my man, your music is garbage. Anywho, but I remember watching a video of his talking about Maoism and showing this clip of a documentary where they were talking about during the Maoist time, a student kicked a ball over the teacher's head, and they had like a meeting or, kind of like a struggle session, I guess you will, with the student and everything else like that. And he admitted that it was because he hurt his pride, this and that. But he said that the teacher who was saying that you have to listen to us and, he had to obey authority and everything else like that, that's liberalism. And I was like, I don't know about that. Like I say, but anywho, I think that I'm going to give my very basic understanding of what liberalism means. Liberalism, I would argue, is just the status quo of the United States, which is capitalist companies making as much money as possible, bootlicking the current authority, whether that be the police, the military, your boss, whichever. Well, that doesn't mean necessarily that hierarchies are never going to go away. They'll always exist at some point. I would also say it involves electoralism, as crap as the electoral system is in the United States. Whether you want to say, and by the way, I don't advocate for destroying of the Electoral College, because I feel that I am, I guess, more of a Wignat in the sense that when the Electoral College is broken, then basically California will become the voting bloc. And so people are going to spend more time in California than they do in Montana, these other states. It's the thing is, I guess if I really genuinely believed in accelerationism, I guess I do. So yeah, you know what? Screw it. Let's go ahead and push for abolishing the Electoral College. Because once you do that, once you abolish the Electoral College, as a lot of lefties want to do, once you do that, you're going to create alienation. And like I said, an alienation exists currently, yes, but people don't see it as plainly as they would if, the Electoral College was abolished. So I guess abolish the Electoral College. So you know what? Let's just go mask off here. Abolish the Electoral College so that hopefully some people can see, you mean that once you destroy once you blow away the smoke, basically, that has clouded your mind in front of your eyes, that gives you the idea that this is an actual democracy where people vote on things and that everybody gets the choice to voice their opinions? No, that's not true. and that only, highly populous areas will get to speak for you. And I think that's the only way. We see it with Idaho, the Greater Idaho Project, where they're trying to get some Oregon counties to join the Idaho, join the state of Idaho. Now, of course, a lot of that is MAGA-pede sort of stuff, but I think that this is kind of the beginning of, arguably, the Northwest Front to a point. I do. Because people get, like I said, this is one of the things that I think lefties have a hard time discussing. They will talk about, being anti-racist, this, that, but how do they get people on their side without alienating people? I would say that, beyond the system that has alienated all of us, it's like the classic phrase, though, is you go with the devil that you know versus the devil that you don't know. And of course people can say, oh, we know what socialism is. We know what communism is. Like I say, but anyway, I think that people know what the system is. They know that people in general don't give a rat's ass. Particularly at this job I have now, they don't give a shit. As long as you keep things clean enough, then they don't care. What I would say to y'all is this, though, is once you advocate for a guy who's going to go, regardless of white or black or whichever, when you advocate for those folks to go to jail, then you are simply being a bootlicker. Now, of course, the thing is, if you care about mud brown people, and that's all your fetishization is, because arguably this whole, let's talk about black folks getting arrested for an ounce of cannabis. Let's talk about that. You don't give a shit about them. You wouldn't even give them a second look in the street, arguably. You'd be like, oh, and they would... and they would arguably do the same and just say, another cracker. That's arguably what they'll think. Another dumb honky. That's, like I say, vice versa, where, oh, it's a lovely black person. Oh, or whichever. We need to help them versus them we can be like, shut the fuck up, cracker. Right? I don't know how. But when you advocate for folks to go to jail and to lose their jobs, regardless of who they are, or what they did because you feel bad that insurrectionists attempted to take down the U.S. Capitol, and you support people going to jail, then you've lost the high ground. But furthermore, as it says in the title, is that you are creating people who have nothing left to lose. If they lose their house, they lose their job, they're going to have that asterisk next to their name when, depending on, what, how long they did or whatever, they were put in jail for or prison for, then they're going to go and become lumpen proletariat, or they're going to become like militia members, right? And they live on some compound, this and that. So the whole thing is, I'm going to finish with this because I did think about this, and this is how I'm going to end it. If you think that January 6th was the worst thing that could happen to this country, or you think that it won't get any worse, wait and see. That's what I can tell you. Wait and see. I heard, and I showed a clip of that on my second channel where Vosh was pushing the conspiracy theory that's like, oh, the Republicans are going to go after AOC now. They're going to execute her. But if we just get rid of the Republican Party, then, if you get rid of the Republican Party, can I just tell you this? If you get rid of the Republican Party, same as you get rid of the Electoral College, you are an accelerationist, arguably. Because once you do that, you are not, do you think that I really don't understand this thing. Do you think that all the racist people or all the bad people that you don't like, all the evil white men are going to just give up and say, oh, well, the Republican Party doesn't exist? You're going to create smaller groups, and you're going to create groups. You're just going to come all out to fascism. I guess the thinking behind it is this, where it's like, well, if there's no Republican Party, then these other fascist groups will be arrested, this and that. You think that the folks who are the higher ups of the Republican Party wouldn't just go mask off and appeal to other folks and just use the rhetoric of national socialists and far right libertarians or whatever? You think that they wouldn't do that and just change their messaging a bit so that they can create their own party? Are you serious? Or create like a pro-Zionist party? Like I said, because that's pretty much what it is, right? Or the gay conservative party or something like that. That could be a thing. But it's like, it's the same thing with the Electoral College. If you genuinely want to get rid of the Electoral College, you support balkanization, you support acceleration. Because once you get rid of that Electoral College, and it's just purely based on people, on the numbers of the people, then you have nothing else to guide you. It's just the people, right? Ignore, of course, the fact, like I say, we can get into the fake ballots and all this. Oh, well, it was one of the most secure elections in history. Give me a break. But anywho, once you do that, you already have a base of, Republicans and, the MAGA-pedes or whatever that now realize that this government does not care about them. And I would say that's good. See, the thing is, what people are really mad at, what the American left is really mad at, is that they don't have control over people. That this is coming from the right wing. Well, the fact is that you guys don't know how to talk to people. And that ultimately, the way that you just want to appeal to liberals. You just want to appeal to the liberals. You do not want to appeal to the reactionary. You don't want to, like I say, and I know people say, this is the false meaning of white working class. It's black folks that do that. The thing is, though, that even black folks, to a point, want some sort of black nationalism, right? I'm sure they would. They want some sort of black nationalism or black separatism. But people like you don't want to offer it. So they go further. So they go to the Nation of Islam, or they go to, possibly New Black Panthers or whatever, right? Because you don't want to offer it. You want this, like I say, you are probably, the Voshites and all those types of folks are arguably the more marginal. They marginalize people far more than Republicans, in my opinion, where they'll say, oh, because the Republicans allow more black folks in there, they're racist. It's like, okay, all right, I'll agree with you on that. But the thing is, though, when you just simply give lip service, not providing black folks any sort of, they'll say, oh, well, yeah, slavery happened, this and that, but you're getting the same check that everyone else is. All right. I'll edit this down. It's a problem, isn't it, when people interrupt? Where was I going with this? Is Vosh and his crew marginalize these folks? They don't really represent them. They don't understand their history. They don't understand what they really want. They'll say, yeah, slavery happened, but guess what? You get the same check that everybody else does. And what does that lead to? That leads to folks to go further down the path, as I already say. But, that's the whole thing. They will claim that, Tariq Nasheed is simply a black Nazi, this and that. And they don't have the answer. You have to remember this. Lefties in general do not have the answer to racial equality. They don't. Their policies ultimately, arguably, I would say, are one size fits all. So they don't want to talk about black nationalism outright. They will give lip service to Black Wall Street and say, yeah, it was awful what occurred, but maybe that shouldn't happen again. Like I said, they give all this sort of, we don't want to talk about that sort of deal. That's really what their argument is. That, yeah, we should support POC and transgender. This is the problem with the big tent mindset. that left-wing folks have. There's a big tent on the right, but in general, it's all pretty much honkies who are arguing about just varying types of government or no government at all, right? Like the libertarian types or the ANCAP types, right? When you get into this sort of idea where, well, we're going to accept transgender folks, we're going to accept the whole LGBTQIA stuff. We're going to talk about, we're going to support Hispanos or Latinos or I'm not even going to say it with the X, but y'all know. We're going to bring all these folks in, ignore their individual histories, and ignore the tensions that exist between Black folks and Chicanos. They will ignore all that because apparently people just write that off and say, it's just history, bro. It's just because the Spanish were racist and all that. It's like, no, it's not just that. It's just not that simple. It goes deeper than that, but they don't want to dig into it. They'll simply just say it's history. Oh, it's the same thing when they talk about anti-Semitism. Oh, it's something that middle managers preached about so that they could get more money. It's like, yeah, that's probably part of it. But you don't think that those are real issues? This is why I would say that the left in the United States anyway is never going to gain a serious foothold as much because they will ultimately become, and they already have to a certain point, become the biggest supporters of this system. They have. The Justin Kings and the Voshes, they will give lip service to revolution, but they're ultimately cautious of that. They just want this system to be better. They're the real Make America Great Again folks. They're the real MAGA Pete's, I would argue. Maybe I'm going real schizo, but that's my argument. And they don't want to change this system. They just want it to be better. They just want to get rid of the racism. That's really what it is, too. And they just want to accept homosexual. They just want to accept the gay community. They just want to be able to accept all different people. And will ignore, of course, all these different cultures, history, and everything else. They want to be a true rainbow nation like South Africa, but they won't talk about South Africa. No, why is it that only white nationalists are talking about South Africa? Because, it's such a, the white genocide. But they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to counter all that propaganda. They're going to give the same half-baked takes that the mainstream media does. That's, if nothing else, if no other words, if everything else falls in deaf ears, let me at least say this, is that I would just hope that at least one fairly big named lefty YouTuber or any sort of group would talk about South Africa and say, well, this is what it actually means. But I know what they would say. Oh, it's just white nationalists, and will ignore, of course, the fact that Indians are shooting black folks and all this sort of thing. Because they know that they don't have an argument. And that's why they ignore it. Because they know, to a point, I feel like if this country was not as economically strong as it was, and the thing is, this country is going to become economically weaker, but the fact is that we can hold on long enough because we're going off of vapors, basically. But the thing is that this country is going to end up like a South Africa. Not to the same degree, but I think that we've already seen aspects of it. The reason why it hasn't happened like South Africa is because we have a lot of buildings, useless places that can just be burnt down and nobody will care. Arguably, people will say thank you. This is why I would say is that ultimately, as edgy as you can say and much of an anti-theist as you are, is that you are serving the purpose of the system. Destroying Catholic churches because of, the colonialism that was committed by Canadians. It's what the establishment wants. It's what the people at the top want. They want you to destroy churches. They want you to destroy the images of Andrew Jackson or excuse me, of Robert E. Lee and all this. They want you to take these things down. They want you to. That way they can push their own agenda. And the thing is, of course, lefties will say, oh, well, woke capitalism really, it occurs, but it's not the same thing. And ultimately, we're going to show that we're the real, true folks who support the gay community. It's like, no, you've lost that. I would say, you can go ahead and talk about Must Stonewall all day. But I don't know. I'm just ranting and raving at this point, but there are a lot of folks who are going to have nothing left to lose. And ultimately, it's either join the folks that really don't want to make a change, or the folks that say blend into the system. Even I saw you Gopnik's video, of course, where they're like, well, if you can join a union, you can do it, but be careful. It's like, yeah, no shit. Give money to homeless people. Don't ask them where they, don't ask them what they're going to do with it, because they ain't lived hard enough lives. And it's just like the most of it was common sense. It's like, okay, yeah, go for jobs as you can or whatever. It's like, okay, but it's like, do you really? This is this is the same type of argument that people had. Don't worry, I'm going to wrap it up pretty soon. But there's a lot of shit I'm going to say here, obviously. But the folks who are, who are supportive and say, just because, the capitalist system, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, maybe you should do, it's all just pitiful, sort of, it's just cope. But what I was going to say is that when, what is her name? Oh, I genuinely can't think of it, her handle. ContraPoints. When it was shown that she was making something like $500,000 a year. Hold on. Hello? All right. Well, we're going to have to edit that down again. This time I will actually have to edit it down. So apologies if this video comes out late. That was from the United Farm Workers. And so, like I said, I have given money to them, so I know. I guess, But I support that, generally speaking, even though I don't really eat that many veggies. But, anywho, I know. It's so I can give my slight liberal leanings, I guess, but anyway, the left today in the United States supports the status quo, in my opinion. Vosh can go ahead and say, is that, are we truly anti-imperialist because we dislike America, but we also don't, but we don't dislike Russia and China? And they're just like, well, this is just how. It's funny to me where it's like, they used to give the line of, yeah, you can dislike America, but you should also dislike China and Russia. And it's just like, you have to have a base of operations. That's the whole thing, in my opinion. Where people will say, I think part of this is pragmatism. I'm going to try to be good faith here, but part of this is pragmatism. Part of it is selling out. So you have to figure out which is which. But I think the part of it is realizing that, yeah, you need a base of operation, because basically you don't want to tear the whole country down. And that regardless of, let's dab on all the American conservatives. Even Vosh has said, as I showed in that clip, and he said it a couple other times, where as much as he'll talk shit about Republicans and conservatives, he'll still say, I don't think all conservatives are bad. I think that they've just been, they've been, brainwashed, I guess, and all this sort of thing, right? So he says that, but then also gives, and says, well, you should donate to, this fund and all this sort of thing. You should be able to, I'm going to start giving money, surreptitiously, basically. I'm going to give money so that people don't know it's actually from me, and I'm going to have proxies who are going to do this. I mean, I guess if you think that works, then okay. But people mistake social progressivism with actual progressivism. And I think this is the basic flaw and the basic lie that has been given in. It's like, oh, wow, well, gay rights have been, granted in these various places. And of course, the thing is that it proves the right wing correct. Because, of course, we've seen the push for basically, I'm just going to say the word, but pedophilic laws in California. And of course, they'll always say, well, the LGBTQ movement has no connection with, NAMBLA, this and that. They did. They can go ahead and say they haven't, but yeah, they did. And eventually people woke up to it. But the thing is that we see that once I'm going to bring this back to another point, but once the Electoral College is gone, you think that these laws won't, be pushed somewhere else, and you'll have, this is why the whole idea is that, you need to move to Montana so that you can vote for these progressive laws, this and that. And of course, like I say, it's social progressivism. It's not a raise in minimum wage. Worker protections, no, none of that. We don't care about that. We have surrendered on that point. Those things are not going to occur. It's about gay rights. As long as we get gay rights and we have, more protections for brown people, then that's good enough. And that's really what the lie is, because that's what it's about now. People just want more gay acceptance. Oh, that's social progressivism, though. That's not economic progressivism. Providing a living wage or providing some more worker protection, some sort of actual sort of safety net. They're not pushing for that. They give lip service to some ideas, but no. They have sacrificed accepting everybody into the club without giving them enough money to survive. And that's where we are. So, yeah, a lot of folks are going to have nothing left to lose, and they're going to choose to ultimately join groups that are unsavory, that literally don't give a shit about them. But you can make a lot of money, and it's a start. And I think more people are going to go towards the lumpen proletarian route and, do illegal things, if you will, and subvert the system, then try to push for social progressive values and just sit there, on a panel with somebody, who's part of the government or something like that. But that's where we are. And I think that's our future. Our future is a Brazil, basically. Our future is a country that will become more corrupt, that, and whatever sort of, free market you want to have is going to be created by, you're going to be screwed on both ends, where you're going to have the corporations that at least give lip service to woke sort of stuff, to the LGBTQ stuff, but then we'll also, you're also going to have gangs that control the cities that get support from those woke corporations, and will turn their backs and say, I don't see what you're doing, so do what you got to do to keep that. As long as people buy our stuff, then we don't care. And that's the future of this country. It doesn't matter whether it's balkanization, whether that happens under balkanization or not. I feel that that's what's going to occur. So, yeah, that was a long rant. I appreciate y'all for sticking by. Hopefully y'all enjoy this. I think that's all I really have to say on it. That turned into a long rant, but there's a lot of stuff I was thinking about. And just kind of seeing the changing waves, the the shifting of the sands of political discourse today online. You know, the lefties are no longer talking about fight fascism, not as hard. They're saying, convince the liberal. Convince the liberal, work within the system. Or, find your way to make the system work to your advantage or whatever, right? And that's what people want to do. Anywho, I think that's all I have to say. Hopefully y'all enjoyed this video. See you later. Goodbye.